What if I told you that America's clean energy future depends on a single shipping route that most Americans have never heard of, and that losing control of it could set back the country's renewable revolution by decades? While politicians debate solar subsidies and wind farms, a quiet revolution is happening thousands of miles away in the contested waters between Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean. Every day, cargo ships loaded with solar panels, lithium batteries, and the rare minerals that power our clean energy dreams navigate through what industry insiders are starting to call the Solar Strait, a narrow maritime corridor that has quietly become more critical to America's energy security than any oil pipeline. Here's what makes this story fascinating and, frankly, a little concerning. Right now, as we speak, 77% of America's solar panel imports flow through just 4 Southeast Asian countries. Vietnam handles 37%, Thailand 17%, Malaysia 16%, and Cambodia 7%. These aren't just numbers on a trade report. They represent the physical infrastructure of America's climate commitments. Every solar installation on American rooftops, every utility-scale solar farm stretching across Texas or California depends on components that traveled through these increasingly contested waters. But here's where it gets really interesting. While we've been focused on reducing oil imports from the Middle East, we've inadvertently created a new form of energy dependence that might be even more complex. China doesn't just make solar panels, they control 95% of global polysilicon capacity, the fundamental material that makes solar cells work. They process 65% of the world's lithium and 74% of global cobalt. So even when we import solar panels from Vietnamese or Malaysian factories, we're still fundamentally dependent on Chinese-controlled supply chains. Recent investigations have uncovered something that should make every American energy planner lose sleep. Over the past 9 months, U.S. experts have discovered undocumented communication devices, basically cellular radios and other transmission equipment hidden inside Chinese-made solar inverters and batteries already installed in American energy systems. Think about that for a moment. The same infrastructure we're building to achieve energy independence might contain embedded vulnerabilities that could be exploited remotely. This isn't conspiracy theory territory, this is documented reality.
The Department of Energy has confirmed these findings, and they reveal how the transition to renewable energy has created security challenges that we're only beginning to understand. When we talk about energy security in the 21st century, we're not just talking about having enough power. We're talking about making sure that power can't be turned off by someone else. The mathematics of vulnerability are stark and somewhat terrifying when you break them down. If the Solar Strait were blocked, whether by accident, natural disaster, or deliberate action, America would lose access to approximately $4.2 billion worth of critical clean energy imports every single day. To put that in perspective, when the Ever Given cargo ship blocked the Suez Canal for 6 days in 2021, it disrupted $9.6 billion in daily trade. But that affected everything from sneakers to automobiles. A Solar Strait blockage would specifically target the materials we need to build our renewable energy future. The timing couldn't be more critical. America has committed to deploying 40 gigawatts of new solar capacity every year to meet climate goals. Our domestic manufacturing, even running at full capacity, can only produce about 30 gigawatts. That 10 gigawatt gap, it has to come through imports, and most of those imports flow through the Solar Strait. Miss those shipments for even a few months, and suddenly America's climate commitments become mathematically impossible to achieve. What makes this situation particularly complex is the geopolitical chess game playing out in these waters. The countries surrounding the Solar Strait find themselves caught between American climate ambitions and Chinese economic influence. Vietnam hosts major solar panel assembly facilities, but relies on Chinese raw materials and processing. Malaysia has become a transshipment hub for Chinese companies trying to avoid U.S. tariffs. These nations are walking a tightrope between two superpowers, and that balancing act determines whether America's lights stay on. The economic implications extend far beyond energy bills. Tesla recently suspended production at its Berlin factory for 2 weeks because Red Sea shipping disruptions delayed component deliveries. Imagine that scenario playing out across America's emerging clean energy manufacturing sector. The Inflation Reduction Act has triggered over $370 billion in clean energy investments, but most of these projects depend on imported components.
A solar Strait disruption wouldn't just increase energy costs. It could strand hundreds of billions in investments and potentially thousands of jobs. Historical precedents show us exactly how quickly these situations can escalate. The ongoing Red Sea crisis has driven shipping costs up by over 300% and added 10 days to journey times. Many shipping companies have declared they won't return to traditional routes even after the immediate threat subsides. These disruptions create permanent changes in global trade patterns, often making alternative routes the new normal regardless of their higher costs. But perhaps the most concerning aspect of solar Strait vulnerability is how it could weaponize America's own climate commitments. An adversary wouldn't need to attack American solar farms or wind turbines directly. They could simply disrupt the supply chains that keep them operational and prevent new ones from being built. It's a form of strategic leverage that turns America's environmental progress into a potential weakness. The irony is profound and worth considering carefully. For decades, America has sought energy independence to reduce reliance on potentially hostile nations. The renewable energy transition was supposed to achieve this goal by harnessing domestic resources like sunshine and wind. Yet, in pursuing this vision, we've created new dependencies on foreign supply chains that may be even more vulnerable than the oil imports they're meant to replace. Industry experts are starting to recognize these vulnerabilities, but solutions remain complex and expensive. Domestic production capabilities could theoretically eliminate solar Strait dependence, but building that capacity requires the same imported materials and equipment we're trying to replace. It's a classic chicken and egg problem that doesn't have easy answers. Strategic stockpiling offers some hope, but the diversity of materials required for clean energy technologies makes comprehensive stockpiling economically challenging. Unlike oil, which can be stored in standardized facilities, critical minerals require specialized handling and have varying shelf lives. Creating strategic reserves for dozens of different materials would require unprecedented coordination and investment. The military implications add another layer of complexity to this challenge. Modern defense systems increasingly rely on renewable energy technologies for everything from forward operating bases to electric vehicle fleets.
A solar Strait blockade could simultaneously undermine both America's climate commitments and its defense capabilities. That dual impact would amplify the strategic leverage available to any nation or group capable of disrupting these shipping routes. Recent developments in hybrid warfare tactics suggest that adversaries have already recognized the strategic value of targeting critical infrastructure and supply chains. The cyber attacks on Colonial Pipeline and various power grid facilities demonstrate how modern conflicts increasingly focus on economic and infrastructure targets rather than traditional military ones. The solar Strait represents a massive, concentrated target for these types of attacks. What's particularly troubling is how the concentration of clean energy supply chains creates cascade vulnerabilities. Solar panel production doesn't just require polysilicon and silver, it needs specialized glass, aluminum frames, electronic components, and dozens of other materials, each with its own supply chain vulnerabilities. A comprehensive disruption of solar Strait shipping could simultaneously impact multiple stages of the manufacturing process, creating shortages that persist long after shipping resumes.
The psychological and political dimensions may prove as important as the economic impacts. Public confidence in clean energy technologies could be severely undermined by supply disruptions, potentially reducing support for renewable energy policies and investments. This could create lasting political obstacles to clean energy deployment even after physical supply chain issues are resolved. We've seen how energy crises can reshape political landscapes, and a solar strait disruption could easily trigger a backlash against renewable energy initiatives. As we look toward the future, the solar strait scenario raises fundamental questions about how America balances energy security with climate commitments. The clean energy transition represents both an opportunity to reduce traditional energy vulnerabilities and a risk of creating new ones. The challenge lies in managing this transition in a way that builds resilience rather than just shifting dependencies from one region to another. So here's the question that should keep energy planners awake at night. Is America building the renewable energy infrastructure of the future, or is it constructing an elaborate dependency that adversaries could exploit at the worst possible moment? The answer to that question may well determine whether the clean energy revolution powers America's next chapter of prosperity or becomes another source of strategic vulnerability in an increasingly dangerous world. What do you think? Are we building energy independence, or just trading one form of dependence for another, potentially more dangerous one?